Hello and welcome to this presentation on modes and scale degrees. And the reason for this presentation is to show how it applies to understanding the fretboard on the guitar. So I'm going to start with a basic explanation of modes. So a mode is a reorganization of the notes of a major scale, and they're given all these names: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. Because there are 7 notes in the scale, there's essentially 7 inversions or 7 starting places. And the reason for this, the reordering, or why the order is important, is because when we start and finish on each note in the scale, it produces a different tonality. Now, many people argue, well, I don't ever use those tonalities, so I don't need to know them. However, it is important on the guitar. I think it's important for understanding the fretboard, because the fretboard has in standard tuning, and this applies to all sorts of tunings if you ever explore alternate tunings, because once we have a starting point of these notes, if we wish to play all the strings in the same key, then our knowledge of modes will help us, even if we're not using it for tonality purposes. So these up here are scale degrees. And the first, the major scale aligns with the scale degrees that are just whole numbers without flats or sharps. So we see here we have the G major scale, and it goes whole, half step, whole, half. And assuming this is correct, which it is, that those align with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with scale degrees means or implies major. So the second mode of the G major scale would be the Dorian mode. And so all that means is now I'm going to make A my 1. When I make A my 1, that does not change the relationship of the notes within the scale. So what it does is it turns the third note in the scale into a flatted third. As you can see, the 4 is still there, the 5, the 6, and the 7 is now flat. And then we have to duplicate this note at the octave. We don't have to, but it makes it easy. Usually in definitions of scales, they start and end on the 1. So this process repeats. We go to the third mode. And on the third mode, we see now we have this flatted second involved. The third mode is the Phrygian mode. And then it also has a flatted third, a 4, a 5, a flatted 6, a flatted 7. So now we have the Phrygian mode right here. The reason why 2 of the modes are given nicknames, major and minor, is because those are the most popular tonal center usages of the 7-note tonal system. Any one of them, and I urge any musician to explore the tonality. When I say the tonality, making a tonal center out of each and every one of the modes. For instance, if I know the G major scale and I know the location of the B note, then as I'm improvising melody or creating melodies, I'm leading into and out of creating a tonal center around the B note. That will produce a Phrygian modality or a Phrygian melodic harmony. I think same thing can be happen with chords. We can do the same thing with the chords, center around the chords. For now, we're just going to continue to talk about these modes. Now, continuing on, I'm going to take the C note and we're going to align these. Align C as the 1, and then you see that yields a 2, a 3, and then a sharp 4, flatted 5. We call it the sharp 4 because it's the 4th note of the scale. The G, which is the 5, the A, which is the 6, and the B, which is the 7. Observation about the Lydian mode: it is exactly like major, with the exception that its 4th is raised to a sharp 4th. The 5, the 6, and the 7 are all the same. Very important observation, because they're very similar with the exception of one change. Continuing on, we're going to make the D R1, and we see it has a 2 alignment with the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and then the flatted 7. Another observation, the Mixolydian mode is just like the major mode with the exception of the seventh being reduced. In other words, this would be a D major scale if C was sharp in here, and that's what the D major scale is. For any of you that this is confusing to, I really recommend just sticking with it and you will have an aha moment. It is simply the reordering of the 7 notes of the scale. Why? Because it produces various tonalities. You might say, I don't use those tonalities, and I'm repeating this is review. But as you will see in the next part here, how we can use our knowledge of what these modes are, what their scale degrees are, to help us understand and locate things on the fretboard. Continuing on, we've got 2 more to go. The minor modality, or the Aeolian as it's called. They all start on the 1, 2. Now it's got a flatted 3, the 4, the 5, the flatted 6, the flatted 7. And then finally, we go to the Locrian. Oops, I didn't move this one over here, so I need an E over here. And then trying to stay in line of my tags here. Flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, and 1. So none of these are exactly the same. And the reason none of them are exactly the same is it's because a 7-note pattern that originates as whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, every time we switch it up is going to have a different formula. So there's 7 different things. The same 7 notes reordered is what we have going on here. So if we were to take this from the standpoint of the Roman, or these numerals here called the scale degrees, then a major would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to skip to the Lydian because the Lydian is very much like a major, and it's 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7. And the Mixolydian is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flatted 7. Let's switch over to the fretboard. Assuming you know your open strings, E, A, D, G, B, E, here I have pre-constructed the major scale on G. So D is the Mixolydian. We discussed it's the same as major except for the flatted 7. So D, I'm going to align those. We could see how that works. And then after that, I'm going to align the align the G. I'm going to delete these duplicates, but we see here, if we know what this is, then the same note appears on a different note, but on the same fret each time. So it really helps with navigation to know that you're always going to have that note directly behind you there. So let's take a look at this with the A note now. And so the A is the Dorian, and the Dorian is a 1, 2, flatted 3, 4, 5, 6, flatted 7. So it has all the same things as major except for the flatted 3 and flatted 7. It has all the same scale degrees as the Mixolydian, but it's got a flatted 3. So it would be, I can just take all of these and line them up and see how that works. So if we take A right here, we see this aligns. This is the flatted 3 but the rest of them will align with the Mixolydian, and they all align with the major except for the 7 and the 3. Continuing on, we go to the minor. And the minor has a flatted 3, flatted 6, and flatted 7. So that's going to be just like the Dorian, except for the flatted 6. So you see they successively line up with each other here, exception of the flatted 6. Now we can save ourselves time here by copying the E string over here, and that just leaves us with one string, which is the B string, which is a Phrygian. And if we take a look at the Phrygian, we've got a flatted 2, flatted 3, flatted 6, and flatted 7. So that's just one off from minor. And so what that means is take these notes, line it up with B, and we'll see if that's correct. We'll see they all line up except for these two right here. And so then this configuration gives us the entire fretboard, or at least 12 frets before it repeats on the next 12 frets. This is from understanding modes. There's a lot of ways to understand the fretboard, but just in breaking it down once again, I'm going to remove these here and remove these here. Here we have the major mode. In taking the Mixolydian mode, we see that everything lines up except for the 7th, and that's because the Mixolydian has a flatted 7th. So the guitar in its tuning in a major scale system is trying to put as many notes on the same frets as it possibly can. There's really no tuning that you can have that all of the notes of the scale are always going to be on all the same frets. There are some variations because of this this interval right here. So now the relationship between the D Mixolydian and the Dorian also differ by just one note, and that's in the flatted 3rd of the Dorian. And then minor has the flatted 6, which is right here. And there's 2 E strings on the guitar. And then the Phrygian mode differs from the minor mode by just one note. Now this, again, there's many ways to approach the full understanding of the fretboard. This is just a single string method, understanding the scale degrees of the modes. Another reason why it's good to understand it from this perspective, if we change tunings and we understand the relationship between the intervals and what modes they are, then it's a lot easier to produce this without having to start all over from scratch and understanding that new tuning. A lot of things can be understood just by understanding the modes on the single string. Let me know what you think. Maybe kind of deep. Hopefully my visuals here suffice, and I plan to do more videos in the future. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to do a video on it. Take care.